Hello everyone, welcome to my Alien Isolation, Nightmare difficulty, no damage, no human kills walkthrough, and this is the Reactor Maintenance chapter, which is a chapter that many consider to be the scariest chapter on this game when you actually get to the part where you're in the Xenomorph's nest, because it's just such a different kind of environment and you're in an enemy territory and you're having to deal with two Xenomorphs as well as facehuggers, and altogether it compounds into an experience that is definitely unforgettable in a lot of people's minds. And I definitely commend the developers for actually giving that section the illusion of scariness. Because what I've actually discovered about that particular part of the Reactor Maintenance chapter is that it's actually heavily scripted. The developers really did a good job at hiding that. And if a developer is able to hide such designs like that very easily, that definitely goes to show how well designed that section is, and I think it's definitely one of my favorite parts of the game by far. And I found some really good strategies for that section. I mean, the original recording that I got, I was being very aggressive, but there is also a stealth strategy for Reactor Maintenance when you're in that sequence, and I'm actually going to show it near the end of this video. But it involves use of the stun rod, because I didn't actually know this, but the stun rod can actually serve as a stealth weapon, and it will prevent the Xenomorph from detecting you whenever you use it. And you can use the stun rod as a way of killing facehuggers without the need to use your weapons. It's a very clunky process to do so, and I have a ton of bloopers at the end of this video that showcase just how bullcrap the facehuggers can be whenever you're trying to utilize the method of using the stun rod against them. But before that point, we have to deal with a new enemy type, which are the Super Joes. So, the Super Joes are no different to the regular Joes, but the main differences with them are that they have a lot more health and they're slower. And they also have the ability to resist EMP devices, such as your stun rod and also the EMP mine. So, you can't reliably use these tools when it comes to stunning the Super Joes in order to allow you to run past them or to set them up in a position where you can hit them with your maintenance jack. I mean, if you're already playing this section properly, you won't ever be put into a position where you need to do that. And the only time you really need to deal with Super Joes is in the Reactor Core area, because dealing with 4 Super Joes that are very random in how they choose to path around the environment, and also having those puzzles that are randomized every single time whenever you're trying to decouple the overflow circuits, it's a pretty dangerous situation to be in, which is why you want to make sure that you dispatch them easily. And the game does give you the tools necessary to dispatch these enemies. They die very quickly from the shotgun, and the bolt gun is very powerful against them. If you fully charge it, it will instantly kill them. With the shotgun, you'll need to hit them in the head at least 3 times. I know I said before in the previous video that the shotgun was very underpowered, and that oftentimes it took like 4 headshots, but it mainly takes 3 headshots to dispatch these Joes. But once you interact with that console, the hemisphere banks are now open, and this guy will always spawn in that location, so I split up the video so I'm able to get past him easily. And all you need to do is interact with 3 of these. It doesn't matter which side you go to, as long as you interact with 3 of these, you will be able to gain access to the vent that will allow you to gain access to Apollo's core. And we're being introduced to a new puzzle element. So, alongside the Access Tuner puzzles, we now have these sequences of 3 randomized puzzles, where you'll either be doing a matching game, where you need to match the top row to the bottom row. You'll be doing a moment where you need to hit highlighted numbers, and finally, the third puzzle involves you having to press up, left, or down on the D-pad in order to lock in the corresponding input that is shown on the screen. And the cool thing about these puzzles is that if you exit a puzzle, you can get another puzzle entirely, and the best puzzle you want to get is the matching puzzle because it's so easy to do and it's a quick and efficient process. And the other one that's kinda decent, but it's also pretty annoying, is the D-pad puzzle. The one where you have to press the highlighted number takes forever, but the D-pad puzzle or the matching puzzle are your best options when it comes to getting those puzzle sequences done quickly. And it's definitely handy when you have Super Joes closing in on you in the Reactor Core area if you're not actively killing them. But I'm having to speed up this sequence right here because, once again, I'm very conservative with my stun rod ammunition because I wasn't really sure if I was going to use it or not for particular sequences. So rather than wasting time with just trying to sneak around this working Joe, use the stun rod against him and just mash him down with your maintenance jack. It saves so much time. But you need to gain access to this new upgrade for your cutting torch. And once you gain access to the upgrade, you'll be able to cut into this panel that will allow you to gain access to the next area, which also has another working Joe that you can easily dispatch using the stun rod. But just like this section, I'm going to take the long way because I really didn't understand how useless the stun rod was going to be at this point in the game, when we're mainly fighting Super Joes over the working Joes, and I think this is actually the last working Joe you come across. Every other enemy is just going to be replaced by a Super Joe. And there will be a couple of humans later on, and once again, the humans are going to be absolutely bullcrap in the way they're designed. So the strategies that I've laid out in my original walkthrough are most likely going to help you when it comes to getting past the humans. I know Carcinogen SDA did find some really good strategies for dealing with the humans, but I wanted to settle for a quick and efficient process rather than a slower method. And I really think the only encounter with the humans you really have to worry about for this part of the game is the encounter with Seeks and Security in the Seeks and Communications area. That's really the final part of the game that you have to worry about humans. And after that point, it's all pretty simple. Although I will say though, I did get one really bad bug in Mission 17 where you have that one lone security guard by himself who has a shotgun, and for some reason on that sequence, the guy's shotgun was just floating in midair and he was walking around with no gun. It was so odd, and when I was trying to get past that whole entire section without killing him, because I'm trying to do that for this walkthrough, whenever I would open the door that had the facehugger in it, the game would just crash for no reason. So, if that guy gets that bug, you have to ensure that you get rid of him. There's nothing you can do, or you just have to hope you get very lucky, and that's what I had to go for in the end. I had to get very lucky that the game wouldn't crash, which happened in the end, thankfully. But there's no reason for that to exist. It's just ridiculous that this bug happened. It happened so many times. It must have happened like 3 times in a row before it stopped happening entirely, and I don't even know what I did that stopped the bug from happening. But it's just unbelievable. I even reported the issue to Sony, but I doubt they're actually going to be focusing on this game, considering this game came out in like 2014. But we have just gained access to the bolt gun, and you're not going to get a lot of bolt gun ammo for most of this game. I mean, the only other spot where you'll actually be able to get bolt gun ammo is in the reactor core area when you're trying to purge the nest. Because for some reason, when you re-enter the reactor core area after you do the reactor maintenance section of the game, it populates certain boxes and certain structures with ammunition. It seems very odd that it would do that. But I guess it's there to accommodate for the fact that you're dealing with 4 Super Joes. Oh, and by the way, you do not want to kill the 4 Super Joes coming up when you're first getting into the reactor core area, because the game will just completely replace them with 4 new ones. Seems rather silly that they would do that. But I guess you could probably excuse it to the fact that maybe this new wave of Super Joes has happened to come in, because when you are trying to purge the nest, 2 waves of Super Joes come for you. So that's really the only explanation I can give as to why this area gets repopulated by Super Joes when you return to it. So what you want to do instead is you want to use your revolver to parry the grab that these enemies do, because anytime you shoot them during their grab, they will always get stunned. This is the chapter where I actually discovered this parry system, and it's so reliable. But like I mentioned before in the previous video, if you immediately go for an enemy after parrying one enemy, they will not do the grab. They will instead do a melee attack which cannot be parried. There is no stunning them. You need to wait at least like 5 to 7 seconds after you parry the first enemy so that the next enemy is more likely to do the grab. It's rather dumb that it works that way, but what can you do? But this is the reactor maintenance chapter, and I'm just going to trivialize it for you guys. This is the aggressive strategy that you're watching. So, the Xenomorph isn't active at the moment. It's only after you overload the Alpha Conduit that the Xenomorphs will start to be active. But kill that Facehugger and make sure you are not close to it, because whenever you use a gun to kill a Facehugger, you will cause acid blood to spill, and the acid blood will damage you. It's why I was getting a lot of moments in one of my earlier playthroughs of this game where I was just getting seemingly killed by nothing, and it's because of that acid blood. But do not do this. Do not pull out a Molotov right here. And I sprinted a little too early just then. So I lured the Xenomorph. So that was a really bad strategy just then. What you're supposed to do is when you get to the body that's on the left wall and the frame rate kind of drops a little bit, you need to crouch and just move slowly towards the door and just let the Xenomorph pass. The Xenomorph will always do the exact same path to the right. And you need to wait for him to do 7 steps before you're allowed to uncrouch. But this right here, I'm going to use the flamethrower against this facehugger. I assume this is the intended way they wanted you to do this. They wanted you to make this section a lot more random than what it needed to be by forcing you to use your flamethrower against that facehugger. Because the flamethrower actually makes noise, and it can alert the Xenomorph to your presence. But do not do this. Do not go into these vents straight forward. You want to go inside them sideways because Ripley has a lot of trouble getting inside these vents and you have to crouch before you actually push forward. The prone is an automatic system, but with these kind of shapes that the openings have when you're going inside of them, it makes it very hard for Ripley to trigger the automatic prone. So at least you can go inside sideways, and you'll want to go in sideways to ensure that you can use the flamethrower to prevent the Xenomorphs from running towards you, because the flamethrower will cause them to just walk towards you because they're scared of the fire. And whenever you go through this vent again, this Xenomorph right here on the left, it will always be here. So you need to wait for him to pass and go inside of the vent, and now you need to overload Beta Core right now. And because I use my flamethrower, it's random whether a Xenomorph is going to drop down or not, so you need to be ready with your flamethrower or your Molotov. The Molotov is definitely the best choice when it comes to getting the Xenomorph out of here, because the flamethrower is just very inconsistent with the number of bursts it takes. Whereas the Molotov does such high DPS upon first exploding that it always causes the Xenomorph to run away, so long as you're not close to the Xenomorph. And also, by the way, do not go on the left-hand side. Make sure you're hugging the right-hand side as you are sprinting back. If you're on the left-hand side, you'll cause a facehugger to spawn. You'll be forced to kill it. There's a facehugger right there. This is mandatory, so use the flamethrower when you're inside of here. That's what you're going to have to do on the stealth strategy as well, because for some reason, even when you use the stun rod on that facehugger when you're inside of an area that the Xenomorphs can't get you at, it will still not change the fact that randomly a Xenomorph can jump down from the vents and go this way. There is a vent that these Xenomorphs can camp on, and I have no idea where it is. If you take that path, you will not have to deal with any surprise vent attacks. But now we have done reactor maintenance. That was incredibly easy, and it's really well designed, so long as you're playing it as intended. But ammunition has spawned on top of these boxes over here, so take the time to pick them up. That will always give you flamethrower fuel, but then the bolt gun ammo is random as to which crate it will spawn on. Sometimes you'll get bolt gun ammo over here, other times it'll be on the other side. So keep that in mind when you're trying to go for the bolt gun ammo. But the pathing on the Super Joes is completely random. They could have been closer than where they were just then, and I would not have been able to get that bolt gun ammo. But you notice that I'm not trying to dispatch the Super Joes immediately. That's because I wanted to try to find a strategy that didn't involve me having to shoot them, because I feel like it could be a very time-consuming process. But just shoot them. You have plenty of ammo. You really don't need a lot of ammunition for the later parts of this game, because you already have enough tools at your disposal to find a lot of these different ways of getting rid of the enemies, or just getting past them. But what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to lure all 4 of these Super Joes over there, and then once they're at the correct threshold, that's when I start to run. And because I overloaded that core first, I need to go for these specific terminals that correspond to that core. So this right here is completely random. There's no telling what puzzle I'll get. If I get the matching or the D-pad puzzle, I'm in luck. So this is the matching puzzle. Matching puzzle, you can get it done in seconds. It's so good. And then for the next one, I get the D-pad puzzle. You want to wait a little bit longer than usual when it comes to hitting these inputs, because these inputs tend to disappear very quickly. They appear for about a split second most of the time, so that's why you gotta wait a little bit longer for the input to actually stay on screen before you actually log the correct input on your controller. But I've done these 2 terminals right here, and now is my chance to overload this core right here. And because I've kept the Super Joes on that side, they're going to be less likely to close in on me as I'm trying to do these puzzles that correspond to this core. And I probably should have done the other one right over here first, because whenever you're doing the consoles for the second core, you'll spawn in the next wave of Super Joes. And they will spawn in from the command center directly to my left. which is why doing this one was probably not the best choice, but I've done both of the cores. So now I need to redirect power to the central core, and when you do this, it will completely kill every single Super Joe, which is a really nice design choice, even if it is a little strange. You'd think Ripley would be affected by this as well. I don't know why it is specifically focused on the Super Joes, but who cares? This is a really good design right here. And if you're wanting to get some loot, take the time to loot them. I mean, most of the time they don't drop anything because you already have a lot of loot at this point. Maybe if I committed my components to IEDs and had more space in my inventory, maybe I would have gotten the loot out of them. But I guess considering the way the loot system works on this game, it's kind of redundant at that point because you're already going to get back a lot of resources from just playing the game, given the way the loot system works. And also, I discovered where the blueprint for the pipe bomb was in one of my playthroughs after this walkthrough. It's actually in the medical facility area in Mission 5 when you're trying to gain access to Dr. Morley's keycard. It's on a gurney as you're making your way over to that door that requires a keycard that allows you to get back to Coleman faster. So if you have a pipe bomb for this sequence, it's definitely reliable. This is really the only other part of the game where I would definitely use a pipe bomb just to speed up the process. And I find it funny that they would actually put the blueprint for the pipe bomb in such an early mission, especially given that the pipe bomb requires so many components to actually craft it, yet you barely use it for the full entire game. It just seems rather pointless. Like, you even use it as a tripwire function. Who's gonna waste time trying to put in a tripwire function for a pipe bomb when you're not encountering that many groups of enemies? You know, like I said before, some of the items on this game feel very pointless, and some of the placements of the blueprints just feel very questionable when they're placing them in areas that you're never going to return to in later missions. But this effectively concludes the Reactor Maintenance chapter, but before I conclude the commentary, I'm going to showcase the stealth strategy for Reactor Maintenance, which will clearly show just how scripted this whole entire sequence is, and how it benefits the overall illusion of horror in this section. But at the same time, it's not going to be a method that's easy to replicate because it's so easy to mess up killing the facehuggers with the stun rod, because the stun rod's paired animation system is horrible. So, just like before, the xenomorph isn't active, and also, by the way, you want to make sure that you are not hugging the left-hand side as you're making your way over to this conduit over here, because you'll spawn in facehuggers. Now what you're going to have to do is, when you get to this body on the left, crouch, and then when you open this door, it's going to script the xenomorph to spawn in, and it's going to go off to the right now. So you need to wait until it walks 7 steps, and then you are free to resume a standing position, and you can just continue walking. Now I'm going to demonstrate the stun rod method against the facehugger, which is incredibly clunky, and because of how crap the paired animation system is, I'm going to utilize a very dangerous method of remaining crouched and moving backwards. And because the facehugger moves slightly faster than me when I'm backing up while crouched, it's going to allow me to set it up in a position where I can melee it with the stun rod. But even still, though, it's up to the paired animation system whether it's going to screw me or not, because, see that? The paired animation system doesn't automatically lock on to where the facehugger is. It locks on to center mass, and center mass is way above the facehugger apparently, which is so bad. But when you kill that facehugger, you will stop the random spawning of the xenomorph from the vents, and it will cue the scripting of this xenomorph right here. So I'm just going to follow this xenomorph until it goes back into the vents, and the ventilation duct I need to get into is to my left, and it's all very simple. And now I'm just going to crawl through here. If I get any loot, I'll pick it up. The loot here is completely random. At times you'll get a compound B, but on this recording, I got scrap for some reason. Not too sure why. But I turn on this generator, and when I go back through the ventilation duct, it's going to cue another scripted encounter with the xenomorph, where this xenomorph is going to come from the left, and it's going to go off to the right. I recommend hugging the left-hand side because there are times where when the game spawns in the xenomorph kinda sees you and it slows it down and it can cause the xenomorph to do random things. But that didn't happen, and now it's going to retreat back into the vents. And because I'm still in a low profile and the xenomorphs don't know where I am, seeing as how I haven't revealed my presence, I'm going to be able to overload Beta Core without any risk of a xenomorph dropping from the vents. And I'm going to, once again, not sprint, and I'm going to make sure that after I overload Beta Core, that I'm going to hug the right-hand side, because if you hug the left-hand side, you will spawn in a facehugger. And when you go past this egg, that's where the facehugger spawns in if you are hugging the left-hand side. You see that pot to my left? That's where the facehugger spawns in. And you can hear an egg opening just then, but I think that's part of the ambient noises that play in this section. There's a lot of ambient noises that give the illusion you've been spotted, but you actually haven't. And I'm going to use the flamethrower here, and like I said before, even if I was to use the stun rod in this part right here, it would not change the random nature of the xenomorphs in this upcoming part. And also, the best way to take out facehuggers is to wait for them to stand still and then shoot them. That way their hitbox isn't so wonky, and you won't get any moments where they will just rush through your flamethrower stream. But that is the end of reactor maintenance. I'm just going to start sprinting, given the random nature of the xenomorph on this section. And now for some bugs. So, I got this weird bug right here where for some reason my shots were not registering on the Super Joes, and the only way I could damage them was to parry them. But as you see right here, look, there aren't any bullet holes at all. There's no contact. This guy should have already been dead. It is so odd. And it's just, once again, demonstrating how buggy this game is. But this is a very rare issue. And now we're going to move on to some facehugger bugs. You see that? How did it avoid my flamethrower just then? And how did it avoid my flamethrower just then? I don't know. And look at that right there. I countered that grab successfully, but the game still thought I was dead. Same case here, and it's the same case here. Look at this bull crap. This is why I don't like this enemy. This enemy is so poorly designed. You have got to make sure you're being very patient with this enemy. And once again, wait for it to stand still. And then that's your opportunity to take out this enemy when it's not being so wonky with its hitboxes. It's just too tiny of a hitbox, and because of that, you're just going to run into a lot of issues with this enemy. But this concludes Reactor Maintenance. Stay tuned for the future parts. Thank you all for watching, and you take care now.